Oh, it says we're live. Here we go. We're live. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
And thanks.
Yeah.
No, go on.
This is our Bitcoin Sydney June 2020. I think, third Meetup live online, our second live stream. So welcome,
it says we're live.
Everyone.
We're live. Hi, everyone.
That always happens. That's the 15-second delay on YouTube.
Or is it like
we have McCook, Amir as co-host, is going to be talking about, dollar cost averaging, everything that we need to know about it. A reminder before we start, this is not financial advice. Haas, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So thanks everyone for joining. Today we're going to be talking about dollar cost averaging and Bitcoin. I'll be giving you the what, how, when, why, and where of dollar cost averaging in a non-financial context. Actually, let's see how this goes. This is the first time I ever try discussing an investment strategy without dropping the words investment. So without further ado, we'll get started on the presentation, dollar cost averaging and Bitcoin. So I'll just share my screen over here for you guys. So we're going to be talking about basically, like I mentioned a little earlier, what is dollar cost averaging, DCA? So how do I DCA? What is it? When do I DCA? Why do I DCA? Which is probably the most important of the questions to answer. And finally, and very, very briefly, is where do I DCA? So disclaimer. So the early parts of this presentation will use the word investment quite liberally and gratuitously. None of the following is investment advice, but some of it should be considered non-investment life advice. So do with that what you will. Make sure to always do your own research and enjoy the show. So what is DCA? So DCA is tried and true. It dates back to some of the earliest days of institutional investing. So it was a strategy devised to reduce volatility of entering and building a portfolio. So it's also known as the constant dollar plan, and it involves investing the same amount of money at predefined consistent intervals. So for example, buying $100 worth of gold a month or $50 worth of Bitcoin a week, etc., regardless of the price of the asset. Now, the important thing to note is the fixed amount of the fiat sum and the fixed interval of investment. So to use Bitcoin as an example, $10 worth of Bitcoin today might buy you 100,000 Satoshis, whereas $10 of Bitcoin tomorrow might buy you 95,000 Satoshis, and so on and so forth. The important thing is the fixed interval and the fixed amount, and that's effectively what DCA is. So DCA, as I mentioned earlier, aims to reduce the impact of an asset's price volatility by spreading out your purchases over time. Now, in traditional markets, like this has been shown over the years to minimize your downside risk, but a lot of studies show that it's not always the most profitable strategy, with lump sum investments frequently outperforming it. So a lump sum investment is effectively a one-off investment. So let's say I have $10,000 to invest. A lump sum investment would be investing all $10,000 into stock X today, whereas a DCA would be investing $1,000 a month into stock X every month for the next 10 months. Now, that's traditional markets. In non-traditional markets like Bitcoin, lump sum investing has been shown to be the equivalent of casino gambling. Whereas if you pick the right day to invest a lump sum into Bitcoin, you can 10x your money in a few months. But if you pick the wrong day to lump sum invest in Bitcoin, you could be down holding an 80% loss for several years. So we'll have a look at the difference between lump sum investing and DCA investing in Bitcoin a little later, but the actual nature of the investment part is probably the least important aspect. So how do I DCA? There's two ways to DCA. You can do it manually, like a psychopath. That needs the most extreme amount of discipline and guts. You got to be, ready to set your alarm clock. Every Monday, go in and no matter what the price says on the screen, hit buy. Or you could do it automatically, also like a psychopath. But this one requires no discipline at all. You don't have to fight your own psychology about whether or not the price is going to rise tomorrow or whether it's going to drop tomorrow. There's no FOMO. There's less of a gambling feel. You just make a budget that's responsible for yourself, and you set it, and you forget it, and you walk away, and you've got a auto DCA strategy going. Next is, when do I DCA? So with something like Bitcoin, it doesn't really matter as long as you're religiously consistent. So and this is nearly almost impossible to do if you're trying to do it manually. So I say that based on my own personal experiences. So I bought a lump sum at the top of the 2013 bubble and was wearing a loss for a very, very, very long time. And even though I would buy dips, sometimes your psychology just gets in the way of you. So you tell yourself, when Bitcoin drops, 30%, I'm going to buy some more. Then Bitcoin does drop 30% and say, you know what? It's just dropped 30%. It's probably going to drop another 30%. I'll wait till it drops another 30 and I'll buy then. Weeks come and go, and Bitcoin did not drop another 30%, and you've missed your boat. So as long as you become effectively religious about this in terms of establishing it as part of your life and your routine, it's gonna treat you well. So in terms of the automatic options, the local auto DCA providers here provide provide options to DCA on a daily, weekly, fortnightly, or monthly basis, and the frequency doesn't really matter that much. It's literally a drop-down box. There's no difference in fees, and in terms of performance, it really comes down to cherry picking and getting lucky on the day you start your DCA. So let's have a look at what frequency does. So let's get ready for some cherry picking. So I prepared these numbers yesterday. So all of these numbers are based on the 9th of June 2020 and moving back in 3, 6, 12, 24, and 36 month time horizons. So over the last 3 months, if you bought a lump sum of Bitcoin 3 months ago, on that particular date, the 9th of March, you're up 9%. Whereas if you've DCA'd daily, weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, you would have been better off, buying weekly and worse off buying monthly. So you can see it's pretty random. So for the last 3 months, based on the cherry pick date of the 9th of June, this is what you get. If you push 6 months, you would have got really lucky and timed a bit of a low point in December. So buying a lump sum on that particular day would have done you far better than a DCA strategy. But in this case, buying fortnightly would have been the best of the DCA options. So far we've had a weekly. Now we've had better off buying in a lump sum. If you've gone over the last 12 months, buying in a lump sum has proven to be better. If you plumbed that particular date of the 9th of June, if you waited a few more months to make your lump sum purchase and bought in the 9,000s, you'd probably be worse off than if you did a DCA. Over the past 2 years, so if you bought a lump sum exactly 2 years ago, you're up less than 30%, whereas the monthly DCA has you up at 47.5%. And over the last 3 years, you've got in prior to a bubble high you've made 250% your money by putting in a lump sum. And if you've been keeping to a DCA, you're best off with a monthly option. So I've shown you many different time horizons, and you can probably see that timing really is just luck and doesn't really matter. If you look at it since the top, if you lumped in from the very top, you've lost half your money. Whereas if you've been DCAing daily, you've got 12.3%. So you've just seen 7 slides, and you're confused and none the wiser. And so what are our major lessons here? That frequency of the DCA doesn't make a big difference. Everything is mostly luck anyway. So may as well go for a DCA than a lump sum. And really, depending on the day you started, the reality of the matter is that 95% of us are top buyers, not bottom buyers. So trying to time the market and beat your own psychology, really, it's a waste of time and a fool's errand. We've also seen that DCA isn't a silver bullet for investors because sometimes if you pick the right cherry, you gain big. But the true power of DCA isn't the ability to make money for you or your investment portfolio, but to solve all of humanity's problems. What? Fix all of humanity's problems? Sounds like a preposterous statement. But I'll tell you why. So why do I DCA and save humanity? Well, Bitcoin is the world's only charitable organization whose mission is to reverse the Cantillon effect, central banking and money printing, i.e. fix all of humanity's problems. So you've got, Greenpeace looks after the environment, the Red Cross looks after, the blood and, famine supplies and all of that kind of stuff. But if you want a charity that saves the world, who do you donate to? And that answer, my friends, is Bitcoin via a DCA donation pledge. So many of you guys probably donate to charities, and every single charity will always tell you we prefer a monthly donation of $20 to one once-off donation of $240. So they effectively prefer the DCA to the lump sum. Now, why is this? A DCA or a monthly donation to a charity gives them a nice, steady, predictable source of income. It's permanent, or permanent in quotations, because once somebody is signed up, to a monthly giving plan, it is extremely rare that they cancel this plan. It's easier to set up than to cancel, and because it's typically small, regular amounts. Psychologically, the mind says, hey, it's only $20. I'm not going to cancel it. Whereas when they think about, one yearly lump sum of $240, it might start weighing on their mind. And finally, and most importantly, when you're backing a charity monthly, the donor does have buy-in to the charity and sort of an ideological commitment to this charity that, I'm sticking by these folk and their mission, and I'll be supporting their mission regularly with this much money per month. So why does Bitcoin need your donations? So the way Bitcoin works effectively from its development cycle is early holders sell during a boom. They sell, they become wealthy, they quit their regular jobs, and they move on to Bitcoin development full-time and make Bitcoin better. They increase UI and UX in the apps, they contribute to core code, they build things like Lightning Network, node services, increase transaction throughput with things and developments like SegWit. So as the utility increases, more people want to buy Bitcoin. So when more people buy Bitcoin, the price increases. And when the price increases, early holders sell, and around the loop goes. So the more the ecosystem grows, the better Bitcoin gets, because there's more money in the internal ecosystem to incentivize people living in this parallel system. Now, one of the ways Bitcoin hopes to fix all of the world's problems is through the creation of circular economies. So what that means is that, you know, the poor and the unbanked will be able to rely on Bitcoin, price all of their goods and services in Bitcoin, and never really need to step in between Bitcoin and fiat. They can stay in Bitcoin. Now, the problem today is that's not doable because Bitcoin is extremely volatile. So how do we reduce the volatility? Well, if you have a very steady stream of daily money going into Bitcoin every single day, no questions asked, absorbing all of the new coins that are mined each day, price has nowhere to move, but either extremely rock solid steady or upwards. And as price moves up, Bitcoin gets better, more people buy, price goes up, Bitcoin gets better. So one of your the best things you can do to ensure Bitcoin's success and the achieving of Bitcoin's frankly charitable ambitions is to become a regular donor to Bitcoin. So don't invest in Bitcoin. Investing is a waste of time. Rather, donate to Bitcoin, and you should schedule your donations with a DCA strategy. So where do I make my donations? So Bitcoin's the only charity really worthy of your donations. You shouldn't make donations at places who also collect donations for scam charities, aka altcoins. For the time being, Bitteroo and Amber are the only Bitcoin-only Australian options available for auto DCA donations. So do your own research and donate often. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a stretch for all you guys, and look forward to hearing your questions.
I don't think that was a stretch at all. Some people might have gotten confused with the charity part.
Yeah.
Someone says, Wojtek said, if charity, is it tax deductible? Wink.
I'd say, no, look, I'd say if you borrow to donate on leverage, I think you might be able to tax deduct the interest, but I would not recommend donating on leverage. Bad idea.
Also, Adam comments that there are other DCA providers too. Yeah, let's talk about that. Adam, do you want to unmute yourself and talk about what you provide, or would you like us to do it? Adam is, okay.
Hi, Adriana.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you? You good?
Hey, Adam.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you okay. Do you want to
cool.
tell everyone a little bit about your company?
Oh, well, it wasn't about me in particular, but yeah, Independent Reserve also do DCA now, which is good, automatic buy feature. And yeah, I also happen to run a business that that delivers a portion of people's pays in Bitcoin. So it's effectively a dollar cost average scenario where someone might get $20 or $50 of their weekly wages in Bitcoin.
And what's the name of your company?
Oh, sorry, get paid in Bitcoin.
That's a very obvious name.
Yes, it is. Yes. But
and,
yeah, it was very much set up around all the principles that Haas is talking about. Just trying to take the investment mentality out of this and just enable people to get in, you know, at an average good price over time.
And look, it is one of the very few charities in history, even that where you donate and you can also become financially wealthy. So it's I don't know. Have you guys heard of many charities that function like that?
I haven't, no.
I've probably you'd have to be you know, something sort of like the Clinton Foundation or something like that. So a politician who's got a charity fund, you donate to their charity and you'll get a political kickback. So there's a whole bunch of politicians all over the world that do that, but none of them have genuine charitable intent like Bitcoin. So a lot of people forget that. You know,
and it's interesting seeing the scenarios that you put up on the screen, Hess. We've actually had clients, you know, almost FOMO in, but they've come through our business. First ever pay was at the peak, so at 25,000 Australian dollars. A few weeks later, they'll ring me up and say, "I want to stop this." And I said, "No, let's persevere. You obviously believe in Bitcoin." And now, you know, a couple of years later,
they're cheering.
They're sitting on a great profit.
Yeah.
Because they
Yes.
dollar costed average all the way down to what was the drop?
Yeah. So it's
or so?
Yeah. So it's effectively as of now, if you lump sum at the top, you'd be, you know, effectively minus 50%, but the DCA has you up plus 40% over that same time. So look, sometimes you can just plummet. Like I know people that bought, you know, in 2016 for $160, and then a year and a half later it was worth $20,000. So sometimes you can plummet, but that's like sometimes.
Yeah.
Most people buy tops, not bottoms, because, you know, if you've bought, you know, let's say at $10,000, it's not psychologically easy to buy at $3,000. Because you say, holy moly, like I'm down 70%, this is going to go down like to zero. Whereas, you know, let's say somebody venturing into the ecosystem for the first time ever at the price of $3,000 would say, hey, you beauty, it's $3,000 and buy. So there's a huge amount of psychology, both buy side psychology and sell side psychology. Like I remember, you know, I've gone through two bubbles now. The 2013 top, where I bought for the first time, and 2017 having the green mist descend over your eyes and say 20,000. I'm going to sell when it's 100,000. And I bet had it reached 100,000, I would have said to myself, you know what? I'll sell when it's 200,000. And then, you know, at 200,000, I'll say, you know what? I'll sell at 300,000. Then it'll go up to 220 and then plummet to 15,000. And I'll be kicking myself for 4 years. I should have sold at 50,000. So there's buy side psychology and sell side psychology, and humans we're not geared for it. The rare people that are geared for it go on to become like the most successful, you know, traders and fund managers and whatnot. But these people are very few and far between. It's like being a good hedge fund manager is like being a world-class 100-meter sprinter. Like these are rare people that, you know, with very unique mental wiring. You know, talk about like strong hands and strong guts. You know, these are the people that we're talking about. But just for the mere mortals like ourselves, really the best we can hope for is like a slow and steady savings plan. So for DCA, for me, I probably consider it 70% charity and 30% savings, because my mission, even back in my days as a civil engineer, my mission was to just deliver infrastructure and social benefit. So when I found something like Bitcoin, I gave up on infrastructure. Like there is no infrastructure worth caring about other than Bitcoin. Like nothing is worth caring about really other than Bitcoin.
Yeah,
so
I refer to it as financial infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I see like a duty to support it. So I support it with my money on a daily basis. I've got like a daily DCA going. Like not because, you know, I'm anything special, or like, you know, I just selected daily on the drop down. So you can do daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever. You know, whatever happens happens, at least I'm not participating in the old monetary system. I sleep with a clean conscience that I've left the system. I'm supporting the most worthy charity in the world, and I'm preserving my purchasing power.
There's another interesting thing that I think DCA opens up, like another possibility that DCA opens up for people, is that I believe people are a little bit hesitant to spend Bitcoin in their day-to-day lives when they're investing. So I've told a lot of people to say, look, pick the amount that you want to DCA into Bitcoin, and that might be, say, $20 a week. But then up that a little bit and say, look, all right, well, I'll actually get $30 a week, and 10 of that dollars each week I don't mind spending for coffee or for some shop that's accepting Bitcoin to support, you know, obviously what they're trying to achieve. And that way you're spreading the love as well. You're helping someone else who's obviously seeing the merits in Bitcoin, probably doesn't want to DCA in, but actually wants to exchange their goods and services for Bitcoin to grow their Bitcoin holdings. And so by upping it a little bit, making sure that you save your portion and spending a little bit, I think you're actually helping the ecosystem, you know, to a greater extent as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. You know, and another thing is people always like put a caveat on don't invest more than you're willing to lose. I always say donate what your heart is able, and like consider the investment just lost altogether. Just consider it a donation, and you know, maybe in a couple of years' time you look to it and say, holy moly, my donation can pay my mortgage.
Has Wojciech here, man. We've been talking about this for a long time, so I've been on this roller coaster a little bit. Obviously not as invested as you, but you've sparked a lot of interest in this, as you know, because I'm doing this now. I'm just wondering, this charity concept's interesting. I get it.
Why are we still here?
There's some
Sorry.
background noise. That's okay.
Sorry, my fault.
No, that's okay. I get the charity analogy, and by the way, that tax thing was a joke. It's always difficult to explain this to people. They often see Bitcoin as a volatile investment. Right now, you're sort of spinning it the other way, which I'm not sure whether the word spinning is correct, but it does make sense what you're saying. Is there anything that you can point me to that could sort of explain that analogy a little bit better? So if I do talk to other people.
So this is what I always, when I'm, evangelizing Bitcoin, the question I ask is nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's always, have you ever wondered where money comes from? And that's the conversation starter, because that question will either trigger, yes, I know where money comes from, or no, tell me about it. And the end of that conversation is always the money printing and fractional reserve banking.
Yeah.
And if you can get this message across, especially with examples of inflation and hyperinflation, and just the fairness of it, we work our asses off. We pay tax, and then someone just prints more money. And the root cause, like everyone says, money is the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil. The money printer is the root of all evil, because no evil can be funded without money. And most of this money that funds evil is just printed money. So if I were to go around to all you guys hat in hand, saying, I need $50,000 from each of you to go bomb some kids in Iraq. You guys can all say, no, I don't think I want to participate in that. Thank you very much. I'll keep the 50 grand to myself. I can just go around and say, that's fine. I'll just print 50 grand on each of your behalves, and I'll go bomb some kids in Iraq. No sweat. Your kids will pay back that bill through inflation and tax. So if you can solve this problem, you've fixed the world. and Bitcoin fixes this problem.
Thanks,
And
mate.
and the other thing I think is we've just got to change the terminology around all of this. I mean, Bitcoin is just a type of money. Fiat is just a type of money. I don't really see it as investing in Bitcoin. I just choose to see it as, you know, I work my wages. I choose a portion in Australian dollars. I choose a portion in Bitcoin, and I'd prefer to save Bitcoin than Australian dollars. So, you know, it's just a decision, very neutral decision about what I want to do and how I want to use my money. And, you know, that it when you talk about investments and, you know, speculation, it's a completely different mindset. And when you think about it as just exchanging one currency for another, or one currency for another type of money, use the correct terms there, you know, you remove a lot of the emotion out of the situation.
100%. I'm in the same boat. I think when you don't have this investment mindset, thinking of it as savings is a very good way of approaching this, especially when you're not putting a lot into it, like you're investing your savings, $100 a month or $50 a month, doesn't really matter. Just put a little bit aside, and also puts you creates the habit of savings, which a lot of people don't have these days. We have the habit of having debt and credit card, and we should really flip that, right?
It's difficult to flip, because if we don't have debt and we don't have credit cards, the merry-go-round stops going around. So again, this all comes back to like problems that Bitcoin fixes by getting rid of like the debt and money printing cycle. So like, and it just extends, like one of the reasons we have climate change and global warming is because we just buy cheap plastic garbage that breaks and that we need to replace every 2 weeks. So like the culture of consumerism is what's, you know, driving pollution and overconsumption. And with a more sustainable monetary system, these kinds of like behaviors are disincentivized. So it's not a short conversation to have, which is why like the sentence Bitcoin fixes this like can be seen like as a very broad, sweeping throwaway sentence. But if you want to go down to the root of the problem, it's a monetary one. And I'm going to be super risky here now. So all of these social turmoils that are happening now in America, the Black Lives Matter movement, on its surface, it's very easy to point to race and say this is a race issue. This is a power imbalance issue. This is an issue of people with a lot imposing their power on top of people that don't have a lot. In this case, you know, the skin color just makes it, you know, apparent. And, you know, not to take anything away from that movement, but an equally important thing. So at a couple of the Black Lives Matter protests this week, we've seen people holding, you know, Bitcoin banners. We've had Bitcoin Zay promoting his Bitcoin and Black America book. And a huge solution for this problem will be to just step away from the monetary system that's driving all of this. So when people talk, you know, Black Lives Matter, does Bitcoin fix this? Yes, it goes a long way in helping to fix this, to bootstrap these people, provide them with economic fairness, because economic justice will always lead to social justice. Adriana, you are muted.
I was going to say here.
Yeah.
Hello, here. Yes, 100%. Anyone else have questions? Amir, you've been very quiet. Okay, he doesn't have any.
Look, I've got more of a comment / question, Has, and I think that was touched someone previously touched on this. I think it was Adam, about spending Bitcoin in a day-to-day sort of scenario where you can go and buy a coffee with Bitcoin. That's where my area where I live, those circles, it's not even possible to do that. I'm just wondering, how can that be encouraged? How can that be sort of promoted? Because I mean, that idea with with the $30 and $10 goes for coffee. I mean, it's a good idea, and I'd love to do that, except I don't have that option, if you know what I mean.
So for me, I think what's the priority number one for Bitcoin right now is to monetize it. So for me, I personally don't spend, and I won't be spending until Bitcoin is round about, I don't know, $1 million each. When it's $1 million each, a merchant can then charge you Bitcoin for coffee and not have to run away and immediately dump it for Aussie dollars. So for now, for me, in my mind, is spending Bitcoin is effectively selling it. I will only spend Bitcoin on a merchant who I know and has guaranteed me that they will be holding on to the Bitcoin. So basically, right now, to hold the price of Bitcoin stable, we've got 900 coins mined every day. Let's just round it up to $10,000. That's $9 million a day to hold, to absorb all of the mined supply. So let's just call it 3.5 billion a year. For the past 3 months, governments have been printing $3.5 billion per hour. So when serious money starts coming into Bitcoin, you'll start seeing serious prices. And when you start seeing serious prices, you'll have serious stability. And when that happens—
There must be a mistake there, Has. Did you say per hour?
Per hour. Yeah, 20,000 billion has been printed in the past 3 months.
Every time I listen to the numbers, they get bigger.
Yeah, 20 trillion. So yeah, 20,000 billion or yes. 20,000 million. It's stupid amounts of money. So look, buying coffee, I think, will be commonplace like soon enough. Probably not this year. Well, this year, like there are places already that accept it, but you probably won't see it becoming slightly more ubiquitous until you see at least one more runaway bull market where, people see Bitcoin's in the news, it's $30,000, like, oh my God, Bitcoin's back. Everyone piles in. The mempool jams up again, and like transaction fees go up, and then people learn about the Lightning Network because that exists now. And then during that bull cycle, people start, experimenting with the Lightning Network. Merchants start to learn about it. So I can see, it's probably just one more Bitcoin business cycle away from seeing a lot more merchants accepting Bitcoin. So it's not a matter of will they? It's a matter of when. So I only think we're a few years away. We're still very, very, very early in Bitcoin's life. So the other week I gave a presentation at the Value of Bitcoin conference on Bitcoin being a startup company. So just like I made the analogy of it being a charity, today I made the analogy of it being a startup business. So the first difficulty period was the pre-seed rounds, where the product was just absolutely garbage. It was funded by like founders and their friends and their family. Then we went into the second difficulty period, and we had, the seed phase. It started becoming more professional and more sophisticated. Then we had Series A, like where things like the Lightning Network came to existence, where we got Bitcoin satellites up in space, and we are now just entering Series B. So Series B is the optimize funding round. Series C is the scaling funding round, and then we have IPO. So prime time for Bitcoin is still probably 2 more difficulty periods away. So it's just an issue. It's just an issue of patience.
Thanks, Has. That's good. What about, I might just get some free advice, Has, while I'm here. In terms of getting paid by Bitcoin, I've got my own consultancy, as you know. My wife, she's running a little shop as well, and a lot of her suppliers actually accept Bitcoin. She's always surprised. I go, check if they take Bitcoin, and she, and she checked, and a lot of them do, because it's a sort of like a niche market. It's in wellness and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of like-minded people in that space. To set something up, I mean, we can take this offline, but how would I go about doing that? Is it
in terms of setting up an online shop, or
well,
just to accept payments?
To accept payments, yeah.
Okay, so that'd be so there's self-hosting options now via BTC Pay Server.
Okay.
And I'm currently investigating this because I have a friend who's a surgeon, wants to be the first surgeon in Australia to accept Bitcoin for surgery. And in terms of like technical expertise that I can offer, I'm quite weak in that regard. But I did post about this just the other day on Twitter, asking around, and so yeah, get in touch with me offline. Now that I've got a couple of people asking the question, I'm probably going to have to figure out an information aggregator. So there are the guys over at Ministry of Nodes that do a lot of educational courses around building nodes and whatnot. And BTC Pay Server is an aspect of that. So you can check out Ministry of Nodes. But I'll probably talk directly with the Ministry of Nodes guys as well. This might be a workshop worth doing, setting up a BTC Pay Server and payments integration into your website.
I'll just also add there, Has.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, there's a fellow I know called Lucas Cullen. He's set up 2 or 3 of those BTC Pay servers as well. So there's skills in Australia to do it.
What about Square? Can't you accept Bitcoin through Square?
I think only in America. I'm not sure if the Square terminals, or actually I'm not, yeah, I know the Square terminals you couldn't, but Square Online.
I think Square, if you set up Square Online, or if you have an online shop, or if you have payment online, I'm pretty sure you can.
I can check that because my wife uses Square. I can actually look into that. We've never looked at that option, but that's something I can check.
Wojtek, let me tell you how I did it, because unless your volume is going to be big, which I assume at first it will not be, what I did was at the bottom of my invoices, I said you have the option to pay this with Bitcoin. If you want to do so, just get in touch, and then you send them a QR code to your preferred wallet.
Okay.
That's super simple, and then you can test it out, see what happens, understand the methodology, and see what, when you have the option of using a server or a service provider, you will actually know what are the benefits compared to just getting a simple payment through a wallet as well.
Sure. Now that makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, and as a technical bit, I don't know if this is advice or not, maybe more of an announcement. Trezor had a firmware update, and you can't use Trezor with BTC Pay Server anymore.
Okay.
Nor can you sign messages on Casa. Basically, Trezor ruined everything in their last firmware update for some reason. They had a security vulnerability, and they patched the vulnerability, but they ruined everything else. So Cold Card and Ledger users are unaffected. And if you've got a Trezor, don't update the firmware just yet. Hang on for some further advice from the guys at Trezor.
All right, we're hitting the 6:20 mark. Let me just quickly check YouTube chat to see if there are any questions. Lots of comments. I guess Hasi can go and read them later. It's been quite active over there. Anyone else in the call would like to ask a question or make a comment?
I would like to comment, about this Bitcoin fixes all thing. I think that we are as a world society, each country or each society on its own, we've come to a place where we do need to rethink our social contract. And unfortunately, I think it is more complex than just Bitcoin and the monetary system to fix it. I think Bitcoin is important because the monetary system and the ability to surveil citizens and people, and to use the power that the monetary system gives us. Sorry, just one second. So I'm just in the middle of meeting. Sorry. I think that power is giving us giving the government amount of power that is quite unusual and unprecedented. We can see it in China. If your score is not adequate, you can't go on a train, or you can't buy something or something like that. So I do think that we have to have some kind of power as people, that we are not just run over by the people with power. And I think Bitcoin is important for that. But I think in the bigger picture, we do need to rethink that social contract that we have as a society. That's my comment.
That's a hear from me.
And from me as well. That's one thing that I usually say is like Bitcoin and all of this is a starter, right? We start thinking about things that we weren't thinking before, and we start questioning things that we should be questioning, but we are not taught because we are products of the public education system, and they don't want us to question these things. So it is important that we do.
But yeah, there's a lot more people now that are fans of homeschooling after this whole episode. So that could be a silver lining of the Corona episode. More people choosing homeschooling.
There's also a lot more people who hate homeschooling with a passion. That's always the two sides of the coin, right?
So some people had to homeschool, some people got to homeschool. So the people that got to homeschool will probably support it. The people that had to homeschool will probably be happy to see their kids back at school ASAP. Exactly. Well, the kids are back at school by now, aren't they? Yeah.
At least in Australia, they are.
Yeah. So I've been driving through school zone, flashing school zone signs. So but it's almost over in Australia. Thank God. It's almost. We're not allowed to fly overseas, which is terrible for Aussie Bitcoiners that enjoy the Bitcoin conference circuit.
But it's also good because you're not going to be catching COVID-19 and bringing it back here. Yeah,
I suppose so. I'd do it all for Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin loyalty. I'd get sick for the cause. It's fine.
Oh, I said this from the beginning. I wish I had caught this already and had gotten over it.
Yeah, and then you'd never have to worry about it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that if you catch it and get over it. You don't have to worry about it again.
True.
That's the
True.
I'm an optimist.
I think they have done studies, but it's only tested up to like 35 days. So if you've caught it 35 days later, you should be okay, but nobody knows past that. Like we're waiting on the next sets of, because there's the good thing about this, like as morbid and morose as this sounds, is that there's a lot of data points to work with. So hopefully, but that said, the data's been pretty untrustworthy and pretty flip-floppy the past throughout the whole duration. So yeah, the best you can do is do your best, really. Just do your own research and protect yourself to the best of your abilities.
And stop spending on the credit card and save a little bit.
Yeah, Bitcoin cures. Hoard Bitcoin. Don't hoard toilet paper.
100%. All right. I think if there is no more questions, I would like to thank you, Haas, for your presentation. Thank you, Amir, for helping hosting, and Wojtek, Christine, Andrew, and Adam for jumping on the Zoom call. And thanks for everyone who was on YouTube, on the chats, and all the comments. We're gonna read them later and reply to any other questions that we didn't see. Just before we go, if you haven't watched Cryptopia film yet, just head on to cryptopiafilm.com and have a look. Great documentary by Torsten Hoffmann. We had a whole hoo-ha party here last year. The new version is now live. It's awesome. I'm working on the Brazilian subtitles. So go and watch it if you haven't. It's great for the weekend, weeknight, whenever. And thank you to our sponsor, Edge Wallet, where you can buy Bitcoin. I'm not sure about DCA, but you go figure it out.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, and Has. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care, guys.
Have
Bye.
a good one.